Gary get carried away a little bit.
I really don't have anything to say, so if anyone has any questions, that's probably the best way to do it. Okay.
Doing me, well. Sorry. Could you give us any more information from the quote alien Bible, the speculation stuff? But did anyone we know it's an asset made to them? They haven't read that. Shit. So here's the general idea of what our situation is here right now. I would then you go from the return, understood that the incursion at the base where the called, or what's their general identity? Is she?
Well, as far as the alien Bible, I don't know what you're really talking about. Some of the briefings that I read dealt with some of that information about, being a product of the genetic modification.
Right.
But that's about all. That's about all that I know. The repercussions, the big story, all that, all that I really have no idea about.
Well, like you mentioned the Galen or close to the train. Is something with the hassle over there?
I have no idea. There's just a date, and it was a number that made no sense to me. 601 or 30 something. Obviously, in a different numerical system.
So every 78 has a only genetic upgrade. Bad the other part.
Supposedly, if that information is correct.
You guys duck released? But sorry, bitches.
So that's a pretty lengthy explanation.
Well, the relationship to the adult to the gravitational force.
Well, I can give you, a brief overview of essentially how that works. If you want an in-depth description of that, you can give me your address and I can send you a paper on it. Essentially, what the reactor does is provide electrical power and the base of rapid wave and amplify, and it does that by interacting matter and antimatter, essentially. The way it does that is injecting an accelerated photon into a piece of 115 that spontaneously generates antihydrogen, essentially. That's reacted in a small area. It's a compressed gas, probably compressed atmospheric gas, and the antimatter reacting with matter produces the energy, mainly heat energy, and that is converted to electrical energy by a fermionic generator that appeared to be 100% efficient, which is a difficult concept to believe anyway. Also, the reactor has two functions. That's one of them. The other function is it provides the basic gravity wave that's amplified, and that appears at the upper sphere of the amplifier itself, and that's halved off with a waveguide similar to microwave, and is amplified and you focused, essentially.
A lot of the electrical energy will be peak in the gravitational airway.
The electrical energy is transmitted essentially without wires, and I related it to almost a Tesla setup. It seemed like each subcomponent on the craft was attuned to the frequency that the reactor was operating at. So essentially, the amplifiers themselves receive the electrical energy, like a Tesla coil transmits power to, as far as to, and what was the rest of the question?
Yeah, what is the electricity? I think that's the best one, man.
Yeah, that's how the amplifiers receive the power into the waveguide to receive the basic wave. It's very, very similar to a microwave amplifier. And, for more technical description, I can send you drawings or use along those lines, but that's basically how it works.
And states some, I wanted to see the homework to just test it. I danged it, yeah. You adopted it, tells you.
Yeah, the video, mostly videotape and things like that.
John said it was stolen. Where? What's that is sick?
Stolen that, little backs.
Well, there's another level to that, but like I said, right now it's in private hands.
No doubt that she, John said last night that a piece of like this stuff. He did up busy. How does that go?
Well, it really depends on the energy level. The more energy you expend, the greater consumption of fuel, just like any modern machine. So It really all depends on the amount of energy to request out, do you?
What's Dr. Teller's relationship to S4 because he went to work on antimatter weaponry?
I don't know, but he was certainly, I forgot what his exact title was. He was chief consultant or something along those lines. And as far as antimatter weaponry, I don't think anyone was involved in that. Certainly some beam weapon work, and Teller has been involved with that. I think his last project, Livermore, Los Alamos, was I think he called it Super Excalibur, and that was essentially a nuclear bomb detonated in orbit and fiber optic light guides that directed X-rays to incoming warheads, and that's his pet project. He loves that thing, so I don't think he jumped through antimatter weapons. I'll aim back there.
What under your sports model that you work on, what do you think was on level 3 and where were the bathrooms?
I don't know if anything was on level. Well, I don't know if there were any bathrooms on level 3. I can only guess, and I would imagine that there was some sort of navigational equipment or their version of a computer or something along those lines, because I saw nothing else that controlled the amplifiers, the directions they pointed at.
What are you considering may try to develop this type of machines?
I really don't. Without access to certain materials, or maybe new manufacturing techniques that can produce those. But until those problems are solved, the fact that we even know how to deal with it or even duplicate it, and it's pretty useful.
How many other materials might be necessary while deciding on Kitsu? What word did you know?
That might be it. The rest of it might be just essentially polishing up manufacturing figures, making things smaller. Just going away to decent technology, getting a small accelerator running at a higher energy level. I don't know about the metallurgy aspect of the craft. I don't think any exotic metals are necessary, though they may be employed. I imagine you could make a craft out of aluminum if necessary, but what part that plays, I don't know.
There is an entrance beauty. Sausage shake me young fruit on you.
Not any resonance, but it's important most of the edges on the craft around it, which is a high voltage field, does appear at most of the craft, except for the last upper bump. There's a little ring before that. I'm only talking about one craft, sorry, on a ref, but there's a small lane before that, a darker black one, and that's an insulator bang, and that's the only place above that upper section, the third level, is where high voltage does not appear.
Any technology that came from the aliens, was ever anything that we could do today? Be advanced. Easy to breathe us. They are.
Well, there were some basic things. The fact that they're using a little accelerator, a little smaller, we have things like that, if that's what we're getting at.
Anything really advanced?
Yeah, other than the fact that just the way the craft operates, by manipulating gravity, that's about it.
Disagrees.
Oh, that's cool. From the metaverse, what was there to structure the skin of the thickness, because there were reports from Roswell, otherwhere, that it was very intricate metal skin. It was really that when the saw. But what was this?
Well, I called it metal, and I really can't say that's what it was. I called it metal because I slid my hand across it, and it was cold, and it was lustrous. So
You notice any place like you're on an edge or something where it may have been a lot thinner than your skin, or probably blue?
it's hard from the outside. You can tell when you walk in the way the archways are inside. They're probably about 4 inches thick anyway, so you really can't tell how thin the skin is itself, or if it's exotic or tight.
Yes, we're on the Solomon bloodfish skis, and you're actually quick to JQ on the where's the part of the light on bombardment speeds at right target shape or right containers?
Well, I imagine with enough time, you can make a small amount of it. I mean, my analogy is look at how long it takes to make gold an accelerator from bismuth or something like that.
That may just be a technology. Yes.
Right, but the bottom line is you have to sit there and plug in protons and neutrons, for that matter, into an existing atom, and you have to do it, essentially on an individual basis, and they're not all going to catch on. Maybe some are going to
How did they got paper?
I think it was naturally occurring somewhere. Just because it's Ceylon. Yeah, probably so. That's just a guess on my part, but if that technology was harnessed quick enough, chances are they didn't have, when they came here, our levels of technology were probably fairly new to them. They probably never even considered an internal combustion engine, or for that matter, when they're came flying into the atmosphere, it saw little cigar-shaped things of fire come out the back. They probably couldn't conceive of how they were powered. So it was, it just all depends how, what raw materials you have. Like, that's just an opinion that was a naturally occurring element.
They were very well to see spike. That's what the done on the USB.
As of the time that I was there, I was told that they really didn't take them any great distance at all, other than right outside that.
They bit of a route, so it feels like 88 speaks.
If they had a working agreement with the aliens at one time, why didn't
There was a user's manual for these ships. Why they had to look so hard back engineering them?
I have the slightest idea. Yeah,
Is this all video technology, or yeah?
I really don't know. It almost seems like there had to have been some assistance or some information found, but who knows?
Is there information you communicate about them?
No.
With such tight security around there, supposedly only 500 pounds of this material, how was it somebody could get some of it out there?
Because not some of the material is that they have there is essentially raw. The material is, it has to be machined into discs. These discs have to be stacked up and then cut into a cone shape and then sliced along the long axis of it. That work is done at Los Alamos. I'm not exactly sure Los Alamos knows what they're doing. Apparently, they think that they're developing the little coins they're working on is some new type of armor. And having worked at Los Alamos and know people around that area, that's how I obtained some of it.
Can you say anything about Project Looking Glass and the relationship between gravity and kinds?
Well, gravity and time are almost essentially the same thing. And Looking Glass dealt with using gravity essentially to distort time. And as I said before, I really know very little about that. But they were only talking about milliseconds or even less microseconds of time distortion. They're not like looking back in time to see who killed Kennedy or something.
The prop that you talking about, the scout craft, is that the one that's like the Adamski picture with the Crete domes underneath? And if it's not,
I'm not exactly sure if the Adamski. Okay, it's the saucer shape. It has this. We were also one that looks like one of the Meyer craft.
Billy Meyer, right? Did you see any others than that one, or is there 9 out there?
Yeah, I saw 9 total, but that's the only one I got close enough to.
Do you see the one with the 3 domes underneath that, 3 balls underneath that has a simple housing underneath? And then the second question was, did anybody give you any indication as to who was driving or any information on them?
I assume that it was humans that were violating the crowd, though it could have been remote control. But at the one test flight that I saw on the ground, they were in radio communication with someone, and I assumed it was someone in the craft. I imagine it's possible that it could have been a remote observer somewhere, but I just assumed that the seats were retrofitted or they were sitting on the floor for that matter. Are you familiar with a couple aspects of the question? Are you familiar with Howard Meger's Electrocraft and Otis Carr's saucer design? How are their devices? How are they during their gravity fields compared with what you described? And lastly, can you speculate how why the commercialization of some of these crafts that'd be possible with so many different paths of flight for the kind of design? Because they don't work.
Where are you, G? Higher 5 pods inside the back. No.
From your interviews, you seem to feel that the Area 51 or the S4 test site was kind of shot and how it does its research. It really doesn't have the facilities there to actually do the research correctly. And also, I'm wondering, could you comment about that? And also, I'm wondering what you could tell us about the other types of ships you saw there that you thought were alien in origin.
Well, as far as the research at S4, that was kind of slipshod. Just because mainly it was being done from a military point of view. If anything, it was a weapons development program, and they were more concerned about with duplicating the technology, not really duplicating the technology, duplicating the hardware, as opposed to back engineering the technology to find out how these theories actually work and what's going on with them. And so they really weren't taking the scientific approach, and that was causing some dissension. I don't remember the second part of the question.
Just what other types of ships did you see that might have had alien in origin?
I only saw them, and they varied in shape. I was told they had the same identical power and propulsion system, and that's the extent of my knowledge on that.
What about shape?
They varied completely in shape.
Yeah, on the you had the military out there supposedly working with the alien. Do you ever get an inference from them that it was a positive or a negative situation? In other words, when they were talking about the whatever, was it positive or a negative type slant on
Well, they really didn't talk about the aliens. The only time I ever heard anybody mention anything about an alien, someone, and I'm just assuming that someone called the thing a gourd. And that was it. I heard it in the middle of a conversation, and they stopped talking when I got up to them. So, wasn't that?
just a session to the interior of the Flitsnom. I know you had a represent your harvest in the center of the craft, or indoor small seats that were low to the ground. How about consoles or displays or any kind of instrumentation?
Nothing along those lines, but what I call the console, there are 3 seats. If you look at the bottom middle, there's the 3 amplifiers in a triad formation. Directly above each one is something I call a console, and I think that's a secondary part to the amplifier. And an analogy to that would be the actual amplifier, and the thing hanging underneath would kind of be a speaker if you're talking on audio terms. So,
Is there any kind of control or light or indicator? Nothing with that? No on switch?
not that I could find.
Yeah. Did it seem like there was any place or any for a light so far things saying on this?
Not that it was obvious to me.
2 questions. How do they navigate and how do we converse with them?
I haven't the slightest idea how we navigate. Like I said, I think if that whatever controls the configuration of the amplifier is the focusing, which is basically their navigation, is most probably on the upper level craft that I didn't get to look at of. And as far as the conversation between them, your guess is as good as mine.
You think is also the same as this us. Needs the word for me, sir.
The local means of propulsion is essentially them balancing on an out-of-phase gravity wave. And it's not as stable as you would think. When the craft took off, it wobbled to some degree. It's, a modern day Hawker Harrier or something along those lines, if we're able to take off craft, is much more stable than them in the Omicron configuration, which is that mode of travel. The Delta configuration is where they use the 3 amplifiers. And those are the only 2 methods I know about for moving a craft.
Can one pilot depart more Parkus or craft or the Tech 3? You would have.
High time on me. Oh, I'm back in the red.
Element 15, was that stable? In other words, does it give off a radiation or could you hold it in your hand?
No, it's stable.
Stable, so you can hold it right in your hand? And
Yeah, theoretically, elements should reach a stability around anywhere from 113 to 116, somewhere in there. And apparently that's true. And again, they should reach a stability somewhere up around 220 some odd. But, whether those elements will ever be synthesized or found naturally.
but for its size, it was really heavy, extremely heavy.
It's unusually heavy, yeah. Do any of bases now? The monuments of Mars are interesting. That's about the most I can say. They're suspicious, and I really don't know until there's more information. Yeah, I've seen pictures of them and things along those lines. But the most recent Mars probe is taking OL2 photographs of those. So I guess everyone will know in about a year.
All right. Are you still do you still have any contact with Los Alamos as far as your work goes?
Indirectly, yeah.
What's your perception of time and when? Where from height?
Is it the same aboard the craft involved in it? Why is that important?
While you're in or compared to off of it. Well, as long as you're on the craft, everything seems completely normal. Your time flows at a normal rate, and if you're off the track and you're comparing the time of someone in the craft and off the track, there'll be a difference there. Anything where gravity's involved. Now, even the shuttle astronauts, they'll come back just because of the difference of gravity. When they come back, they're, there'll be a slight difference in time.
You heard of any other world survey scientists who belong?
Yes, not involved in this, but involved in the gravity work. He's at Los Alamos, and we've had a little bit in contact. Yeah. I'd rather not, just because so far no one's bothering him. I'm sure he wants that.
You said that the sin on the crowd with the pub vesper. You said the wall inside shop.
Only one place. Only one crop can from No, there's only one place where the seeds face. And it, there again, I said that's advanced technology, but it's not that advanced because we have something along the lines of that lipid crystal that we could, make transparent and also use as a display of sorts. So that's but this was metallic, and we haven't anything along the lines of the toughness of any metal that you could drill into that can become transparent.
And what was the time period when the wall became transparent that you saw symbols?
Probably about 30 seconds or so.
Yeah, two related questions. Are you aware of any instances where the inside of an alien craft was much larger than its apparent outside?
No, I've heard stories like that, though, but I haven't done.
The other thing is the Scrum fork, which you identified the gravity A. I know there's some amazing theories of proposed action in 11-dimensional universe and the 7 of them rolled up. I don't know. Does the operate on any kind of correlated to that?
Yeah, my main problem with that, and Stephen Hawking for that matter, is that once you start creating other dimensions, it's like an excuse. I mean, in particle physics, they do that too. When they can't figure out something, they say, well, we don't know what gravity is. Well, it's caused by the graviton. Yeah, they make up particles like that. You could do that with dimensions too, where they go, I want to do another dimension. Yeah, it's like an excuse. The bottom line is, as everyone has said, every physicist has said, the answer to everything is always simple. And there's not an 11-dimensional universe. It does, first of all, there doesn't need to be, because all this technology works, one-dimensional, essentially a 4-dimensional universe, and there's no need for it.
Yes, I have 2 or 3 questions, please. You said in your videotape that due to work from Las Vegas to Groom Lake, is that right?
Yeah.
How did you get from Groom Lake down to Taproot Lake?
In a bus.
There's a facility on the other side of Groom Lake, on the east side of Groom Lake. Are you familiar with that?
On the east side of Groom Lake. Across the lake?
Yes.
No, I've never been over there.
They were telling you, did you get anything the work that was done on the west side of the lake?
No.
Says it should have fallen.
Well, by the fact that the screen became transparent and other things were operational, I can assume that there was some power generated to
Still currently a part of the Export project. How did he, a person would he on science sheet to say before he had first chip in 50?
I was probably there only 6 months, 4 months, something was like that, as I remember. As far as the key person, I'm sure I was the last rung on the ladder. Though, because no one has really gotten anywhere, they were looking to me for fresh ideas, which I really didn't have anything because I didn't know what, really what's going on or where they'd been. So, it was a very disorganized group, and that's really all I can relay. I don't know how to describe it.
Does it have mission lines in New Zealand?
Does it have emission lines and spectral? I imagine it does. Every other line does, yeah. But all that. Well, no, I haven't seen any spectrograph analysis on it for. Well, actually, they did do. I don't know if I saw it though. I saw a neutron bombardment test and density measurements and things like that. But I'm sure they carried out that test on it. But I would be able to identify the lines. So
You're not aware of the results, see?
they probably showed them to me, but I can't for the life of me remember it.
UBS.
This is Eva.
In possibly in heavier stars or in planets that surround a larger star system, and some people brought up that some people brought up that, that's ridiculous because, all the elements that we know of were found on Earth, and that's not true. It's Tecton, along those lines. It's not found on Earth, it's on periodic chart. So it's no.
There's something going on outside. Good cat, boys. Just keep going in. Victor, versus
Ball in NASA was shit. I went Terry. Yeah, did you saw that book? The man. You're
I don't know. I mean, no matter what, uranium is certainly a valuable element. I don't know.
give me the same alien, though.
you thought maybe a little. Shouldn't
Belly Meyer movies.
oh this Pablo. You don't this
I don't think I've ever seen any motion. At least I saw the flyer. Oh wait, I did see that. Yeah, I did see that. I just saw it over. What's strange about the Billy Meyer photographs at the decks that when she took a picture of looked exactly like the one that I looked on, but I'm certainly not an expert in the field, but some of those look unbelievably fake. And I can't, especially the thing flying around the tree. I mean, it looks like it's hanging from a string, but but why would he do that if he had some authentic pictures? And I have mixed feelings about them.
Would right pull it out there. You have an opinion of this pump? When you have an opinion, right?
I really don't have an opinion. I just, refeed it.
Well, you got the water.
Well, I don't know.
Bob, any weapons on these ships?
Okay, apparently there's one, but I was involved in the project that dealt with it.
Hey, what's your next video covers?
I was trying on the next video. There's the video that I made is being redone by another company only because they liked it so much. And they're just redoing the graphics and making it a little more technical. And I'm just serving as a technical advisor on it. But for the most part, it's 60 to 70% of it's, the identical thing. They just wanted to do it because these particular group of guys involved, I think companies called BrainQuest, involved in special effects, were really into the UFO thing, and they wanted to do it with modern day stuff instead of knit stockings of it. It's like
There's no indication on the ships that when one of our jets would approach, it would neutralize the computer system or electrical system.
well, it's certainly possible. I don't have any information on that, but just by the EMP generated by the systems on the crabs, that makes perfect sense to me.
I go ask you what not the weapon that they have.
It's some sort of directed energy weapon, and I think it's a particle weapon, probably a neutron.
Give me, I'll be a little that's full happy though.
This water all around it.
There might be two, but I know there's one because obviously I was on one. But I can't actually remember if there was any direct mention from there of there being a lower level. But I really wasn't allowed to roam freely around the whole place, so I don't know. Yeah, really.
Bob, could you talk such your vegetation or a couple of different conflicting things I like to for you?
That varies widely. As far as electronic technology, my degree there is from Caltech, and physics is from MIT.
Would you go to Pierce College? Yeah, I did. Okay, was this another? Where did you hear that? Bren said something. I didn't know that somebody I don't even know. I just thought about something I want to ask because the clerk, mama.
Yeah, with the Piers and Northridge, and then I'm terrible with dates. I don't remember what date I was at Pier. Probably like in 76 or something. I was at Pierce, and then 77 or 8. I went in Northridge just for a short time for some classes, and I was at Caltech, and then MIT after that.
Yes, in front of you.
Well, there's something to guess that there is not a Department of Naval Intelligence or shown on your IRS record. I wonder if you could address that.
Yeah, I've heard people say that before, but the bottom line is if you, and I've let other people check into that. Bob Exler is a guy that managed to trace that down through the IRS. And if you write the zip code number on the bottom of it, or NC-101 or something like that, or NC something anyway. It gets to somewhere in the Navy. As far as if there's a department there, no, I don't know. But that's the W-2 that I got sent. So
Well, that same person was say to get the song that was someone that says bird and
that was unused.
yeah.
Well, no, he had correspondence with someone in the Navy through that address.
I'm not called that Bob there, so
Oh, Bill Moore, I don't know. Bill Moore,
he's a liquid of stuff.
yeah, I guess he disputes everything I say. He said, well, there's two different types on here and this. And I said, well, I don't know. So, that's basically what I get sent. And, I've seen enough information to where if that zip code works, and that's all the information I have. I really haven't pursued it myself.
Mob risk come out,
Well, because of the amount of money. Yeah, no one would know the amount of money except me, people, but John, so that's all the information I've found.
So they're not related to you. But Wong is the Sion for Jesus and the blue sign irrigation.
As far as are they silent or noiseless, there's a slight hiss before they take off, up to a certain altitude, and that sounds like a high voltage hiss of sorts. That's all the sounds that I've ever heard. Lots of reports about weird flying saucer encounters, but I've never encountered that. Who signed my paycheck? There was a signature on it, but I don't know. Who's it was. I never, then I cashed the paycheck. I've never even concerned me tracing anything else.
There wasn't a company name of the owner. Well, I worked with the federal government years ago.
Oh, said that is a green treasury charity. Other papers from the Department of Treasury
No, this said the Department of Naval Intelligence, man.
on the check.
Yeah, how man?
Bob, when a craft like that comes into our atmosphere, would you expect a lab report? They might
It's solely dependent on the velocity that it enters. So, if you're dealing with something that manipulates gravity, it doesn't have to slingshot into the earth. You come in at a low speed, not heat up, not really encounter any
velocity.
Right. Well, yeah, if you're traveling at supersonic and you get a report, if you're not, you don't. You're out the rate. Straightforward.
When you were at S4, to your knowledge, what was the approximate percentage of civilian versus military personnel, and in what kind of job categories?
The civilian personnel were scientific in nature, and the military personnel were only security. And as far as the percentage, there's a small percentage of scientific to military personnel.
Were there any secretaries?
I'm sure there were offices all over the place, but when I came into the facility, I was essentially escorted right to where I worked there, other than the few amount of times that I got to walk into the hangar and under an escort to, and when I left, it was the same. So like I said, there might be offices, there might be bunkers in there might be underground levels, there might be an alien nest in there. I have no idea.
Did you have to bring your own food, or was there a cafeteria?
Excuse me?
How did you eat?
The only place I ever ate was at Area 51. So if there was a cafeteria there, I never got to eat it.
You come and go with other people?
I usually came with Dennis Mariani, who was my supervisor. Now, I wasn't on a full-time swing, essentially. I flew in usually between 4 and 5 o'clock at night and left by 11. So I was only there for a short time each day.
Very feel.
At me and Dennis, and usually, or actually not usually, occasionally one other person. I don't think I ever saw Ferry on the bus.
Is there a chance that any of the workers might defect?
Barry would. So I spent some time trying to get a hold of him, and there was actually sometime after all this hit the news and the whole thing went down, we got a call from Dennis, my supervisor, and he arranged a meeting at the Union Plaza Hotel. And when we got there, I brought 3 people with me, and I think he said he'd be in a casino area somewhere, and but Gene Huff came with me, and we went into the area, and walking down the corridor, I recognized one of the security personnel from there. And then when I finally found Dennis, he didn't even acknowledge my presence. We couldn't get his attention, and I left. So apparently, someone had known to the conversation and sent someone down there and made themselves obvious to Dennis, or something happened to that. But I think that was where Dennis really wanted to say something.
I just kind of use hypnotic progression to get some of the details of your experience. What is your impression with the hypnotic progression?
It's probably reasonable because there are specifics. They contend that you can sit there and reread a document as if you had, as if you were there reading it for the first time. And what I was mainly interested in was some of the schematics and drawings. And, I did some of the hypnosis stuff with Lane Keck, a hypnotherapist in town. And I was certainly able to redraw a lot of the schematics and, engineering drawings along those lines. And it's, so as far as using it as a tool for that seems to work. Not for anything else.
Because first of all, when I was small, so like I saw a daylight flying dish, which looked exactly like what I'm wearing.
That's all you made earlier.
Earlier, yeah. Who am I? Virus. That is some bit size. No, 1,000 pairs. You care. What did hit the locker? Oh. This be them. Dangerous. Let's see. Okay. ED and a new big and then the person I have. Okay. Graduation base. Yeah.
No, it was a master's degree. Let's see your graduation. Probably 82, because I think I left there, went to Los Alamos. When you decided to leave Muscle the Friss. What made you roll in that? Well, someone made the comment that that you might have been victim of some sort of mind control, or that came about by when I was first brought there, they had a doctor or a nurse actually in a little medical setup there, and right after I had signed all of these papers and my first time out there, I went in and they did what I perceived to be an allergen test, because it took a grid on my arm and different, pretty different chemicals, and it was their contention that, well, there's a lot of strange elements here and unusual things you'd be working on, so they're trying to see if you're going to have any adverse reaction to them. And I was given something to drink. I said it smelled like pine, which it did. That's the best way I could describe it. And a lot of people jumped on that, saying, aha, well, that's the mind control substance. When you leave work, you're going to forget everything. When you come back, you remember everything. But, I think if anything, it was an anti-allergen drug or something along those lines.
How about the threats? Are any kind of threats being used?
Yeah, like, this is plenty of threats.
Well, I mean, can you be specific, like bodily harm or the loss of pension, or what had to start with?
Well, the loss of pension and, jail time, that was part of signing the paperwork. As far as bodily harm, after they caught us the time I brought out John Lear and a couple other people up there, then they threatened me, and they really didn't get much reaction out of that. Then they threatened my wife at the time, and that they really threw out everything they could, physically, attacking me.
Well, that's what I was wondering. Once they knew it was really you, not Dennis or someone else or anything, why didn't they just arrest you under charges of either violating?
Well, they can't arrest me because they'd have to admit, that this is classified material, and they'd have to release it. Why did they, kill free? That I really don't know. Well, maybe that had to do with how I got the job, or referencing the connection to Ed Teller or something along those lines. But I don't know.
Were there any contract by name, apartments, division that were mentioned, or signs on the wall, or anything like that referred to any companies or anything like that?
No, but I know EG&G had nothing to do with it. That's the only light I can shed on that, because I had mentioned that to them once, because that's where I was interviewed, at the EG&G building, and I had thought that it was part of the EG&G project. I think it was Dennis who said that, we don't let those people, anywhere near this place, or there was just a sore thumb to him.
Well, as one way of getting this information out, but at the same time, now the one to stop lasting, will you consider bringing into court
On what charge?
for you fairly harassing you, and as a result of that, he forcing you into?
Well, whatever, that's what I do then. I mean, it's hard enough to prove it to, the layman in general, but taking it to court, it's impossible. I mean, there's plenty of people that don't believe me anyway.
But you're well, look answer with what to any of those.
Well, a little, but yeah, initially. And, the bottom line is, the attorney said there's absolutely nothing to go on. It's a total waste of time. And, if anything, it's going to be a public forum to discredit me in some manner. So, why even go through it?
What about class action ACO do was it?
But still, you need, some sort of evidence that this happened. Even if I pulled out a piece of 115 and said, here, well, what does that have to do with anything, And there's nothing that, and what did they do to violate my rights that I didn't agree to at the beginning? So they really had their bases covered.
Pretty sure, but they did you in Las Vegas there in in summer. That was creepy.
What was that?
It's a beautiful.
Well, yeah, that was my own fault.
See, you've been through your Kaplan. Yeah, by saying that, right?
How would someone get a piece of paper explaining the physical properties used in this bullet transmutation?
The physical property. I mean the formulas used in the Grubby 8.
Kind of in explanations for.
Well, if you want to give me your name and address, I've got a couple of things I wrote up that just basically cover some of the. It's a more technical description of exactly what's going on that you really can't explain without drawings.
Is it such a stereo brain?
I've never heard of it.
You feel you're being watched currently? Do you have the interaction with this?
Strange you did mention that. There's been nothing for probably these 4 years or 3 years, whatever it's been. But the other day, one of my phone lines has not been working, and the other one was breaking up. So I called Centel down, and they checked the house out, said there's nothing to wire in here, and they called me down from Charleston Boulevard from the telephone pole, and they said my individual line was cut, and at the other one, the other wires were stripped and twist-tied together. So, of course, me being paranoid thinks, well, someone tapped in there, but I really can't think of another excuse as me being, it's just my single line being played with. But that's what he said, and, they filed a report on that, so that's one form of documentation.
These are your records at Caltech and MIT have somehow disappear.
And Los Alamos and the Galileo River also.
Is there any way you could reconstruct their course or professors?
Oh, sure, I got people that, that I went to school with, and George Knapp has spoken to some of them, and even flew with me up to Los Alamos and spoke to my colleagues there, and it's just.
Could you reveal some of the professors at MIT that thought that?
Yeah, if you want. I don't have a list of them here. Dr. Duxler, I think, was one of them, and Hochsfield was another. Hochsfield, Hochsfield or something along those lines. Would they remember you? Oh yeah, Hochsfield I know well.
These are MIT or
Hochsfield was at MIT. Duxler was at Caltech.
Yeah, who's Barry?
There's a guy I worked with. We actually worked on a buddy system there, and someone you have ideas to bounce off of, and Daria Castillo or Castile.
Was he there before you, or still there, or
was he probably still there?
Did you get any information from him?
Well, he essentially taught me everything that they had done up to date.
In the course of your work, did they ever mention any other facilities installation around the country where associated work was begun?
No, they did mention, though, that this was the place that all of this stuff was brought to, and it was really purposely condensed here to keep an eye on everything and have immediate access to everything that dealt with this, the alien technology.
Regarding the craft, alien craft, were there any test personnel that crashed them? If so, do you know about what caused it for?
I didn't read about any crashes during tests at all. But you'd think that there would be some, that I didn't too.
What, Bob, when you were at Caltech, did you affiliated with any disputes of houses?
No.
Right.
When I first heard of S4, it reminded me a lot of disc testing that I've heard of that goes on in Australia at Pine Gap. And I was wondering if you know anything about Pine Gap. Did you read anything about Pine Gaps that you could tell us about?
I really don't keep abreast of the UFO information. As far as officially, I never read anything. I've heard the name Pine Gap mentioned, but I haven't heard anything about that.
Has anybody ever approached you with a screenplay offer?
Oh, Chris, I constantly.
You ever consider it?
Yeah. The main problem, Columbia Pictures last year really wanted to do it, and they said we're making a screenplay, and my only problem is that if you guys are going to make a movie, it has to be exactly what happened, right? The Hollywood version. I don't want to see Steven Seagal in it or anything.
I don't know too much about your experience, background, or your expertise, but do you have any speculation why they refuted someone on the Masters instead of indication? And
No, that's a really good question. Yeah, I've always said there's plenty more people qualified than I am, and if there's there's only two reasons they could have. Is either number one, was that Dr. Teller essentially juiced me into the position that said, there's a guy about Lazar, I know, and find a place for him, or that the fact that I have traditionally approached everything from a very strange angle and essentially off the beat path and tackling technical problems. So it's only one of those two reasons, unless there's a third one that I have no idea about.
Two things. Do you think they'll ever release this information? And if they don't, how do you think it'll ever come out? Besides people like, or will it be something like what you're doing?
Well, hopefully it's not this way. Hopefully there's going to be a release of information eventually, but whether or not they're going to say, hey, we've been keeping the secret for so long, it almost seems to me that they need a staged incident to get him off the hook. Take a flying saucer up in a C-130 and push it out the back and say, gosh.
How would they overcome the G-forces and the rapid change in direction?
And they don't apply once you distort it. Distorting gravity, essentially having a gravity amplifier, distorts time and space, and those really don't apply. There's no interaction.
So there would be no effect on humans either?
No, they don't affect inside at all.
Bob, I remember working on the S4 project with general education and what it signed with vision data. Permit you, would you believe that? And so when you gave valuable contribution to program, and if so, after how much I rush?
I was always in serious doubt whether or not they were going to get rid of me because there really wasn't anything that I could contribute. I wasn't an expert in any particular field that they were dealing with. So, I made some contributions as far as determining what element they were dealing with was.
Listen to the brain.
Yeah, to some degree.
I was just wondering, when you were at Cal or MIT and Caltech, I forgot if you kind of asked you some your doctorate or whatever, but did you come from a pretty? Was your education pretty traditionally bound as far as your own views, as far as physics and what is considered common knowledge, as opposed to theoretical things? And in other words, how surprised were you when they started showing you all this hardware and these concepts that could do things that was really?
Oh, very. I was.
How long did it take you to start grasping that we could really?
Even when I was reading the documentation, the alien quest really never entered my mind. I kept pushing it off to, while this group of scientists secretly came up with. I just had a mental block against that because I always thought flying saucers were totally ridiculous, and the people that really paid attention to such phenomena were just out in left field. Thanks, Bob. It really made very little sense to me that anyone would deal with something like that. So I really held out to the very end, and until we finally said Bob. So that was it.
Well, that's more. Did you ever hear any Air Force or military squadron numbers or names bandied about?
Yeah, I probably did, but I can't remember. I do remember someone talking about something along those lines. I don't think they were pilots, but they were someone related to the Air Force. I don't remember who, or they were talking about the Air Force, and I think they mentioned a squadron, and I don't know if that was what they called the group that flew the craft, or it was someone else, at Groom Lake. They were like, are you mid-maze or anything like that? No, it really wasn't much, idle banter going on.
These correlated gravitational field, these crashes, so forth. If you were to amplify it enough, would you enlarge the area that you want to take? In other words, could you move more than just craft, say, two craft on the same parcels and so forth?
Or you even ever consider something like those?
It's possible, as long as they were both essentially in the field that was being emitted. I really don't know what how the level of energy relates to the amount of mass that can be bent that way, or how the amount of space that can. Yeah, those numbers I really don't have. So it's just a guess. Would it be feasible?
What kind of component? What kind of component into systems that they have?
I really don't know. That anything that I assume was control systems or instrumentation was up above, and I think that's where the navigation computation took place. And I dealt with only the power hungry component essentially.
When you were at SOAR, was there ever either a period within a day or even a couple of days where you, at this point, don't remember what you were doing during that time? And was there ever a period of time that you're not able to account for?
Yeah, I said that, and again, that's been taken and bent a lot of different ways too. There were times that I left, and it's because so much stuff I was exposed to, I was essentially drowned in information, and when I got back home, I really couldn't remember what day anything happened. But did I forget big chunks of knowledge? No, I just
No, but there like periods of days where you have recall what happened during those days, and you're not able to. And second, we kind of want to get into this, but I'd really appreciate if you would. When you were walking either by the hole or down, whatever, by the door with the window in it, and you look through, you believe that describe that you did see? I mean, even if you're not sure, say, let's state it as exactly as it was.
Well, this has to be taken in the right context too. First of all, it'd be surrounded by the, flying saucers, knowing that the alien thing exists and all this technology. I was walking down a hall to the, I don't remember where I was going anymore, but the different doors to the hangars are small, nice square windows with wire mesh running through them. And I looked in one as I walked by and was told to keep my head forward. And I saw the backs of two guys, and they were talking to a child, or I thought it was a small child. When I told that to John, Larry said, that was an alien, Bob, there's no doubt. And I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was a small guy, but it just looked right at a glance. So, who I think was an alien, no.
Did you see the quote, small guy? Did you see the small guy, or you only saw the two guys looking downward?
No, I saw the small guy.
You saw the small guy that they were talking to?
Yeah.
What did it
Well, it was just a glance. I have no idea. That's why I said, but believe me, if it had a rounded head and big eyes, I'd say, hey, there's an alien there, but I can't say that.
But it was a small,
It was,
subtle person or someone there.
yeah. See, I don't think anyone could bring your kid down there, so I don't know. But yeah, for that matter, they could have been holding up.
Oh, you realize you're talking to a crowd, then isn't it a lot of personal experience, a lot of people?
Right, but I'll also look at it from a technical viewpoint. That it could be a model, a life-size model. They're trying to see how the side relationship works in the seats and other parts of the craft, and what's accessible. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that's like an actually see person.
You are speaking at all about how bioknowledge has affected you emotionally and spiritually. Are you frightened by the implications of what all this means, or
No.
you no doubt thought about the overall agenda? Speculate, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's difficult to really, put a finger on it, since there's so little evidence to go, and really 99% of the stuff that I hear, I really don't even come close to believing at all. And it's not just because I'm skeptical, it's because it's absolutely ridiculous. Even though it's stepping on a lot of people's toes, I think 99% of the sightings out here are absolutely not flying saucers. Most people are watching 737s come into Groom Lake, and they may turn up there and there's lights on the planes. And along the other same lines, there's these parachuted flares that they fire off near the Papoose Lake area, and they're an orange color, which is pretty coincidental. And they're on essentially a modified small hot air balloon, so the burning heat of the flare keeps it afloat longer. And whether they're doing that for disinformation or practicing how missiles lock on to heat-seeking targets, I don't know. But I think 99% of that stuff is what people they come around this area are saying it.
Seems as if even knowing that we possess alien technology hasn't made you a believer.
Yeah, probably true. But it has. I mean, I believe the stuff that I work on, there's absolutely no question in my mind. But I think everyone can only go so far, and I just hate to speculate because I hate to be wrong. I don't want to say, well, it had to be given to us because we didn't shoot them down, and it's so I just stop right there. I forget sometimes your sightings. Okay, so I stop with what I'm pretty sure with, and that's it.
What is your synopsis in a nutshell? Based upon what you saw, what you experienced.
Well, I can't. Like I said, I stopped before that. I had lots of possible ideas in my mind, but
Based only on what your experience was, only on what you saw. What is your synopsis?
my synopsis of what I know to be true,
Yeah.
that the government is holding 9 alien spacecraft that are propelled by a modified gravity generators. Work is being conducted 15 miles south of Room Lake at that isolated area only, designated as S4. That at least one of those crafts operate, and that's about it.
Okay, thank you.
What does your parking garment smell like? Were there unusual odors or from the crash or anywhere?
None at all.
Issue works for sure.
Here's a good question. Didn't know G is what? Or was it?
What was the question? The question is, did you ever see S4 written anywhere?
On your back.
It was the S4 was punched out on the badge, but I was more along the lines I was thinking it was a sign, and I think because it's hard to see, I think near it when you approach the Papoose mountain range, that there is a sign that designates it as S4. But if I'm pretty sure I saw a sign there because I can only see out the front window when I'm going through there, and I'm really not sure what it said. But since most other signs designated it's an area or a tech area or something along those lines, that might have been S4 if that's what you're referring to. Yeah, for Vora, S4. No, well, except yeah, and as someone else mentioned on the badge, it was star punched out there. But as far as an actual sign to the area, I didn't see it in any other writing.
Did you see our badge? There's a smudged up BC.
Well, that's it. It really says it directly above it. I mean, the star punch.
Oh, thoughts are yes.
Yes, Dashmore.
Still work with no big things. How do you write it this time, George? How do you write it?
Does it make a difference? Just so. Well, I know there's a lot of people that don't believe the story, altogether, but it's difficult. There's really a limit to what people else could possibly do, to show people what happened, other than relaying some of the information. I think along those lines.
Oh, what more are you doing? Yeah.
A variety of things. I mean, everything from I have 3 separate companies. One is deals with commercial photo processing. The other one is developing and repairing alpha radiation detectors for radiation off of plutonium, which unfortunately that's going down the tubes because they stopped the testing out here. And I do computer graphics, a lot of that, and actually music videos, believe it or not.
Are you still building your racing debt trust?
Well, I don't do it for money anymore. No, I just take the jet car out and run it around. But I kind of got scared when I originally started raising jet cars, there were like 25 people or something along those lines that were licensed to drive, and now there's like 7. And the guy, when I stopped racing, the guy at a train being crashed. So everyone else is dead. So I don't race anymore. So have every year, huh? Did I sit in the backyard, take out once in every couple weeks, the dry lake, fly around.
Since is such a small AI.
It could be a radioactive element. I mean, you could use, a proton source could certainly be, they could be using alpha particles with that matter, which is essentially helium nuclei. And there's lots of elements that can do that.
The other part is, we saw the badge, the letter, and some of the letter.